Hi guys, Danielle here. This weekend I'm going to be canning chicken, and I will go ahead and show you the process so you can can it at home too.
To start, I use boneless, skinless chicken breasts that are already thawed. As you see here, Mel is cutting it in really tiny pieces. You can cut them small like that, or, as she's about to show you, you can cut them in larger chunks. Once your chicken's all cut, I go ahead and reach for my jars. You've got to make sure that they're sterilized. Once they are all cleaned, I put the raw chicken into the clean sterilized jar. From there, once the jars are full of the chicken, I fill it. You can fill it with water or chicken broth, whichever thing you would prefer. I like to use chicken broth because I like the flavor. Then I take my tool here and I run it along the edge and in the center. The goal of that is to remove any air bubbles that may be in there. Then I take the tool and I go ahead and measure how much liquid is in there after removing all the air bubbles. You can see how all those air bubbles just attach to it and come right out. You don't want to leave all the air bubbles in there, so it's important to do this step. Take the tool and measure it, and make sure I fill it up to the level that it needs to be. Now it's time to clean the rims. I like to use white vinegar anytime that I'm canning any kind of meat. The white vinegar can cut through any grease or gunk that's left on the edge of the jar. You don't want anything to be on there because it might affect the seal when it's in the canning process. Now if you're canning jellies or jams or things like that, a lot of times I'll just use hot water on a rag. But for canning, I always use white vinegar. Go ahead and fill your canning pot. I put 2 to 3 inches in there. Then I always put a dash of lemon juice to help prevent any kind of water residue being left on the jars. Next, I always wash my canning lids, and I use the canning jar lifter to go ahead and get it out of the hot water. I repeat this step with the canning rings. Since the jars are cool, I can go ahead and snug them up. Only finger tight. You never want to over tighten your canning lid jars. Now I put it into the water bath. I always put them in at an angle so no air bubbles get in underneath the jars. As you see here, I like to cook it on my side burner on my grill since I do have a glass top stove. However, if it's raining, I will go ahead and move it inside, which I do later in this video. Now I make sure I put the lid on the canning jar the correct way. I always line the arrows up, that way you know it's a secure, snug fit. Once your pot gets hot enough, it will start steaming from its vent. Once it's been steaming for 10 minutes, then I'll go ahead and put the weight on it. This pops up once the pressure starts building in your can. Once my canner reaches 15 pounds of pressure and is making this sound, I start the timer and I cook it for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Once the timer is done, turn off the heat. Do not try to open your jar until the button goes down, showing there's no more pressure in it. At that point, slowly open your pressure canner lid and check out all your jars. These jars have been sitting here a while, so it's actually safe for me to remove them right now. I use my jar lifter and I take them out of the pressure canner. I always like to set them on top of a doubled up towel because I never want to set them directly on a cold surface or they may break. Please note that when you first take them out of the pressure canner, it is very, very common they are going to be hot and they are going to be bubbling. I always think it's fun to sit and watch how much they bubble. Once cooled, now it's time to clean the jars. I remove the rings and I wash down the jars with hot soapy water. Once they're all cleaned, check how pretty they look. Also, when the jars are cooled, make sure to check that they were sealed. You can push on it and it makes a popping noise. It didn't seal, so discard it. Go ahead and write out all your labels. Now it's time to use the chicken. Start out by grabbing a jar of your canned chicken. I just use a bottle opener and I pop the top off. Now you can use the juice that's inside since it's just chicken broth or water. When you first look in there, you'll see this white layer on top, this whitish yellow layer. That's the fat. All of the fat that was left in the chicken is what you see stuck to the sides. I like to dump mine into a strainer. You'll see it shreds extremely easy to the touch. You can eat it right now. It is completely safe and so delicious. Personally, I don't like the little fat bits that are around it, so I like to rinse it off with some hot water. It's ready to use now. I take the chicken and add it to soups, stews, salads. Sometimes I'll just make a chicken salad sandwich with it. It is so, so yummy.